talking about today the banning of Native American ceremonies. In 1883, as we learned, the Indian Religious Crimes Code was implemented, mostly due to fear of the ghost dance, but also the fact that Native practices didn't fit into the Christian centers. And these crimes were punishable due to the location in the group of dancers or people joined together. The location and the size really had a lot to do with the reaction, and it wasn't until 1925 that Natives in general were granted citizenship. And then again in 1950, when that Termination Act caused loss of traditional lands and tribal recognition. In the 1960s, there was a civil rights movement which brought a lot of attention to all underrepresented people. So then in 1978, there was the Indian Religious Freedom Act, which pretty much had secured that Native practices would be protected. So the history of the Native American Church. It was established in 1918, mostly to fit into the Christian framework of religion. It drew mainly from the Midwest and Plains belief system, and its first president, Frank Eagle, or Ponco, tried to encapsulate every tenet and every teaching that he had learned and make one unified church to try and bring back ceremony. This was aided in the 1950s by the expansion into Canada, and in the 1964, California Supreme Court ruled in favor of protecting one of their most controversial practices, which was the use of peyote, which they brought in when they expanded into Mexico. This brought a lot of attention and a lot of controversy to the Native American Church. They opened their doors to all peoples to come and practice Native American traditions, but they've been regarded as just inviting high enthusiasts, and amongst some of the Native American community feel that it's exploiting the Native American community and bringing in all these different practices from different cultures.
The Federal Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993 was passed by Congress in response to the Supreme Court's refusal to grant an exception for certain members of the Native American Church to use peyote in Employment Division v. Smith. The Federal Religious Freedom Restoration Act required governments to refrain from limiting religious freedom unless they have compelling societal reasons for doing so, and to select the intrusive method to achieve their goal if they need to restrict religious freedom. The purpose of this act are to restore the compelling interest test as set forth in Sherbert v. Verner and Wisconsin v. Yoder, and to guarantee its application in all cases where free exercise of religion is substantially burdened, and to provide a claim or defense to persons whose religious exercise is substantially burdened by government.
One of the unfortunate issues that has resulted from the Federal Religious Freedom Restoration Act is women's loss of access to birth control. Burwell versus the Hobby Lobby, a craft company owned by the Green family, is a case that recently went to the Supreme Court after the Greens decided that because of their religious beliefs, they should not have to provide certain kinds of birth control to their employees. Supreme Court Justice Alito, in the majority opinion, held that the Religious Freedom Restoration Act protects privately held corporations' rights to religious freedom just as much as individual rights. Access to birth control, however, gives women power over their reproductive organs and their lives. Having a way to prevent pregnancy affects everything from personal relationships to a woman's ability to have a career. With birth control, there are more options and more opportunities. The Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which granted religious freedom to Native Americans and other religious groups, is now limiting women's rights to decide what happens to their body, as well as people's rights to be free of discrimination.
Indiana's Freedom Restoration Act, passed by Indiana State Governor Mike Pence, allows business owners and employers to refuse to hire or serve groups based on their own religious beliefs. While opponents of these kinds of bills say they are used for bigotry and discrimination, supporters of God and freedom view them as ordinances that protect religion and the people who practice it. Mike Pence signed the Religious Freedom Restoration Act into activation in 2014. He put forth a state version of a federally indoctrinated law that had been around for about 22 years, with the basic goal of expanding religious freedom, allowing people to practice all idiosyncrasies of their beliefs, allowing them to practice rituals involving hallucinogenic drugs for enlightenment, or to allow people to refuse service to patrons of certain groups that run against the moral code of a business's proprietor's religion, for example. Freedom for all is a generally accepted part of the American narrative. However, problems arise when freedom of one group bars the rights of another. It becomes a conflict of interest between two groups, forming a dichotomy with only one right and one wrong answer, when it should be about finding the best way to ensure human rights.
How do we keep corporations from using the act to discriminate against the people it was meant to protect and their fundamental right to a culture that was systematically targeted? Businesses have learned to take that very act and manipulate the intention of protection, to weaponize it in order to alienate the people. Should individuals and businesses be able to exercise their religion freely? After researching, our group has determined that it should be a fundamental right to practice one's religion in any way they see fit, as long as it does not negatively affect others.